That said, excited to welcome on our Ohio boys, 4 Ohio boys on stage. We got Chris, we got Ty from Good Vibes Club. Big announcement yesterday. I have it on the screen, but DGens don't read. So those people who didn't read, you did give us big, bold letters, which I appreciate, saying the news, which is the fact that the Genesis collection will live on Ethereum mainnet. So I want to give you all the floor to talk about anything in the announcement and talk about why, because the way it was crafted was incredibly well received from what I saw. So I want to hear, one, give people the news straight from the horse's mouth, and then two, how was it received by your community? Am I reading it right, or is my timeline an echo chamber?
First of all, guys, it's so awesome to see you again. I know we just hung out in Paris a little bit, and that was super dope. I love meeting IRL. It's fantastic. And, just being able to hang out a little bit was super, super awesome. So we made this announcement yesterday. It has been received really well. We wanted to be extremely intentional with how we handled it. I had a one-on-one meeting with Luca in Paris, and then we talked to the entire Abstract team to make sure that, we're really aligned and on the same page, because at the end of the day, we want everyone to win. We're here to kind of support the space and also do what's best for our project and listen to our community. So I'll kick it off a little bit. The TLDR is we did decide that the Genesis collection will live on mainnet. That's sort of the chain for digital art provenance, historically speaking. And after kind of discussing things individually with Luca and also with our community, they were raising a lot of suggestions to this narrative of mainnet. It should be the place for the next blue chip. And so that is our aim, to build the next blue chip IP. And taking us to mainnet really allows us to do that. And building alongside the community is something that's extremely important to us. I think that Zagabond might have talked about this a little bit, like in Paris or something, but he was sort of talking about in the early days, they would kind of build in silence and secret and then try to surprise and delight the community. And since then, the team at Azugi has really learned that it's extremely important to build alongside the community and really be in communication in a more consistent way. And now that's not necessarily saying, okay, give in to every whim of the community. Not at all. Of course, as a founder, we need to have a clear vision for where we're going with the project and a clear trajectory. It's our job to shepherd that vision and really be aware of what decisions we're making and how that will impact. But at the same time, it's also our job to really listen to our community, to take their feedback to heart, and then to have extremely serious conversations internally on, okay, what does this mean for us? How can we address this? And how can we best move forward together? So that's kind of the quick TLDR on that, but I'm sure Ty could add a lot more color as well. So I'll pass it over to him.
Yeah, and I just want to say I was so bummed I wasn't able to make it to Paris and hang IRL. I got 2 kids under 2, and my wife was not cool with that.
Would you have dressed the same as Chris, though? Because Chris was very aggressive with the wardrobe choices.
I loved it. You guys saw what I was giving him shit because I thought he looked like Joseph in the Technicolor Dreamcoat when he wore that shirt with all the patterns on it. Yeah,
that was a good meme.
I'm typically a little bit more low key than Chris. Like, even all my friends IRL, they call Chris Ty Plus. Like, he's the bigger, louder, hairier version of me. And he dresses
maybe a little bit more animated, a little bit more, expressive or something.
Uses a lot more emojis.
Yeah, exactly. There's the shirt. Dude, I love the shirt. Okay, so we live in Puerto Rico. We live on an island. I didn't even own a coat. Had to go to Zara when I landed because, I don't know, my coat's either back in Ohio or in New York with either the in-laws or my folks. I don't know. So, it was one of those situations.
It's a good looking shirt. I mean, I would wear that shirt and people be like, you look like an asshole. But I saw you and I was like, this guy Chris looks good. Like, I like the shirt. Like, glasses are trendy. So I just want to make sure and see if Ty was going to maybe a variation of the shirt. So you're sort of like a boy band that you had 2 different exact similar shirts. So anyway, but anyway, Ty, keep cooking. Put the train back on the tracks for us.
Yeah, for sure. I'll just add that, last week, and really recently, there's been a lot of sentiment within our community. Like, we're a high-end art IP and a high-end art collectible. And as our community has grown, it's been very evident in who our core community members are. There are a lot of like OG art collectors, and that's really what the foundation is of our community. And when our community is speaking up and saying, "Hey, we feel this should live on mainnet," and they're giving us all these reasons and whatnot, I feel like as a founder, it's our responsibility to really build around who our community is. And so, we've been working on Good Vibes Club for over 3 years now, and we originally built everything to work on Ethereum mainnet. And when we got connected with the Abstract team, like, their vision on a personal level is something that I really I hold dear to me because I used to do it. Like I was the first person, I used to work at Reddit. I was the first person on the crypto team when they were spinning it up there. And our goal was to find an ERC20 use case that could underlie a core product feature. And so, I tested a bunch of different things, a governance token, peer-to-peer payments, badges, and the badges infrastructure is what eventually became the avatars. And a little story, like when the avatars launched, they immediately had hundreds of thousands of users on chain because it was integrated into a core product feature. And that timeline between when we started experimenting and when that actually launched was around 3 to 4 years. And so it takes time to build consumer crypto product. And so I think that their vision to do so will fundamentally change the space. I mean, we're on an abstract product right now, streaming. It's given us so much that we can do in order to engage with our community already. And they just launched a couple of weeks ago. We've been on streams building NFTs together and having, our community vote on the different traits and whatnot. It's been amazing. And so, we first and foremost in business, like as an animation studio, and we've handled our studio like this for years, is that we always want to do right by everybody that we work with. And so it was really important for us to one-on-one speak with everybody that we've built relationships with on the abstract team. We fundamentally love those guys, and we think that what they're building is incredible. And so, Chris obviously met with Luca one-on-one, Mason and Finn, they're close to us, and I've been meeting with them, and we really wanted to message it delicately, but also how we view abstract as a product is really an infrastructure layer for community engagement. And so if we're setting out to build a blue chip IP, we have the chops from Web2. Like we've helped build the best IPs, in Web2, like rebranded Facebook Messenger, the foundation of Reddit's. Our clients are Google, Facebook, Apple, you name it. And so that's what we have done for years. And that's what we're doing with Good Vibes Club, is building our studio out around that IP. But if you look at the space and how some of the biggest brands before us have paved the way, it's always their Genesis collection lives on mainnet and then they activate on other chains later. And so, we view abstract as the perfect infrastructure layer for community activation in the future. And that's sort of how we're framing it. And I think Zane, he's on our Good Vibes Club account. I think he pinned our animation reel as well. So if folks want to take a look at that, and kind of get a feel for some of the work that we've done in the past. But yeah, I mean, TLDR, at the end of the day, as founders, it's our responsibility to build around our community. Our vision is big. And so this move is the right move for Good Vibes Club. And so far it's been incredibly received. And also we've had, the abstract team's full support in it as well. Because they, if you think about like it from their perspective, how do people like Doodles integrate on abstract? It's kind of like providing this infrastructure layer for community activation and whatnot. And so I think it's really exciting. And we're very thankful for the fact that we have community members that are, open and honest and transparent and willing to speak up, and that we can have this type of discourse in our community. Like that's how you build something sustainable long-term.
I love that. A couple things to build on that. I mean, I think, because I do want to get into that conversation and what you can share about the one with someone like Luca, because I think that is we want people who are grownups in this space. And it was a very grown-up move to have the conversation and not say, hey, Luca, we're informing you we're doing this, peace out, like announcement goes live in 5 minutes, react accordingly, to I want to have a conversation with him as somebody who is leading this business. Although I would be remiss, and I promise I won't focus on this all morning, but the shirt is getting a lot of love in our chat, so I have to say, Dort says the shirt is the shirt is the personification of good vibes. Diablito is that shirt in the collection. Von Frunten, first merch drop. So the shirt comments are even. General Weig said, I pre-ordered 3. I like to think he's talking about the shirt, not the actual good vibes. But maybe a little bit of both. But I do want to say, I got to ask the question. So you have a conversation with Luca. You mentioned that, we ran into you. We knew you were going to have this conversation. I was like, oh boy, like this is not going to be necessarily the easiest conversation. So Chris, obviously you can't give us everything, but right. Give us a little bit of insight into how I want to know how you even approach that conversation, how right. You started it, and then what the initial reaction was and how you navigate something like that, as much as you're comfortable sharing.
Absolutely. And I really value transparency. But I also value, of course, Luca's privacy and whatnot. So I'm going to try to toe this line as best as I can. But essentially, at the end of the day, I'm just here to communicate with authenticity, and also, really be upfront about like where we are. So the way that the conversation really began is like, listen, dude, I really respect you as arguably the most prolific builder in the Web3 space. I think that if anyone is going to succeed over the longer term of a insanely large vision of truly onboarding Web 2 in a meaningful way, I think that if anyone's going to succeed in that, it will be you. It will be you, Luca, right? And so kind of framing it in that sort of context is really important. And then kind of getting into, okay, so here's where we're at. Here's what our community is saying. We also, are not sort of naive to the fact that we don't have a long-term, we necessarily don't have, the time to really, I guess, wait around forever in terms of for things to really get to where they need to be for us to be successful. So from our perspective, we kind of, we see digital art provenance in ETH main. We understand that it's really important to have a successful short term in order to have a healthy long term. Like what we're building here is significant. We put our whole business on the line. We're not just kind of coming out of nowhere. We have like a pretty substantial business in terms of the Web 2 sort of ecosystem that all of our clients are obviously watching, right? And so making this transition is a big move for us. So we're not taking it lightly. And so, in terms of that conversation, kind of just being able to be honest and authentic, and then kind of listen a little bit, hear Luca's perspective. He really, really re-encouraged, me personally, to the point of, okay, I see what you're saying, and ultimately I do think that it makes sense, and we do still want to build on abstract later. We see the most important piece of this is that this isn't necessarily like, oh, we're sort of going this other direction. The most important piece is that we totally believe in your vision long term, and we want to support that, and we still want to engage with that in a way that feels appropriate for our project. And so ultimately it was a very difficult conversation to kind of initiate, but it went really well. And he's a really down-to-earth guy, and he's also really intelligent. So he was just really supportive, and I can't speak highly enough of Luca as an individual. Like I really appreciated that conversation.
It feels like a strong maturation of Web3 when you can actually say, look, we're looking at the scope of where things exist in the different products, and ETH mainnet is the place where a sort of art-based, collection that people are going to want to drive value back to should exist. Abstract provides at the moment a really nice social layer and has many opportunities to potentially build in the future. Like, and I'm making this up, I'm not putting this on you guys, but it's like, if you are like, because I know animation and things are going strong, but it's like, if you're like, we want to build a game, or we want to have our, our folks stream on, who are within the club, and have them, be highlighted. There's no better place. And it's not like you're trying to say their product is bad. You're trying to say, wait a minute.
Exactly.
We're looking at our product as a whole and where it should fit. And this seems to be the best place for it to live. Is that a fair playback? Exactly.
And ultimately, a lot of these different larger ecosystems have products that live across multiple chains, right? Like, you see, the Pudgy ecosystem kind of living on mainnet. You see, the Pengu token initially sort of living on Solana. I think that, obviously Doodles has a lot of different multi-chain activation. And so I think kind of approaching it that way just makes a lot of sense. And we really do, when we say like we're planning on activating there in the future, like that's not bullshit. That's literally what we're discussing right now with streaming, with kind of future activations, with some IRL sort of events and whatnot. So it is absolutely our intention, and that's the plan, is to do that. And we're excited about doing that because I think that it provides our ecosystem with additional sort of opportunities for relationships that are outside of like a smaller sort of niche. So it's really exciting. It was a difficult thing to kind of begin to navigate, and not something that we took lightly, but ultimately at the end of the day, we want nothing but the best for Abstract. We believe in them in the long term. And we're excited to build with them in the future with our additional activations.
Right. And I'll also add that, like, we know, and they'll say so themselves, it's a long game. Like they're not optimizing. Like if they wanted to move a ton of liquidity on chain tomorrow, they could, but they're trying to build something meaningful and sustainable long-term by creating that easy on-ramp for web native folks. And so, we support that vision. I know personally that it does take time. And so, like I said, I love all those guys. They're amazing. The team at Abstract is amazing. And, for us in navigating this with our community, with Luca, with the Abstract team, we shared all of our comms, we worked through it together before. We talked through like, hey, this is how we're planning on activating on Abstract. We're talking about it and whatnot. And they were super on board. And so, I think it says a lot about them. Like they're amazing people. They're amazing builders. And I think they will fundamentally change the space. It's just, for us and how it looks for our project, might be different than others. And so, how that looks in the future is something that we're actively figuring out with them.
Love that. No, it makes a lot of sense, and very much appreciate like the transparency, even on the conversations and the thinking, because I think, again, I'm not asking you to say anything. I'm saying it. It's like what I saw this, like I was, bitching about OpenSea all morning because like it felt like they weren't being transparent and upfront about it. And what I'm hearing here is a very honest assessment of it was a hard conversation. This is why we had it. And the reaction and how that's received, to your point, like I saw Finn quote tweeting and being like, hey, really enjoyed working with these guys. Looking forward to continuing to do so. And so I think it just showed that, again, the space maturing and adults working with adults is something that I think we very much appreciate, and almost refreshing at a time when just before this, we have people saying what's going on in this space. And now we're having, conversations about actual people trying to build a community and a brand. So, I don't know, like to even level set and go back even to the people who maybe missed your first interview with us, because our audience, I think Good Vibes Club fits squarely in our community and audience and sort of what they love. Can you give the, sort of overview, again, of sort of what Good Vibes Club is to people and why you're building it on chain?
Absolutely. So ultimately, Good Vibes Club is high-end art approach to the 3D PFP that maybe has not been done before prior. But at the end of the day, what we really are aiming to do is to create a community of authenticity of people who can kind of connect and revolve around loving art and also being able to be genuine with one another. So we're really aiming to take our approach of IP building, to take our sort of skill set of we are high-end sort of artists who have worked in the Web3 and mostly Web2 space, and bring that energy to what we aim to build in our IP. At the end of the day, I'll say this, speak personally a little bit. Myself as an artist, I didn't start doing 3D animation 15 years ago because I wanted to make like something for Facebook Messenger. I did that because I was obsessed with world building. I was obsessed with finding my own voice as an artist. And that's why I think all artists begin to create. And so ultimately, what Good Vibes Club for us is the navigation and sort of the migration from the Web 2 sort of we're building for clients to now the Web 3 where we're building our own vision alongside and powered by community. So I think that at the end of the day, when you look in the space, there's a lot of authentic builders who are building right now. Like look at Doodles, look at Cleanestores, look at Pudgy, right? Like there's these amazing IP brands that are really balancing that line of how can I activate in Web 2 while retain crypto nativity with my Web 3 ecosystem? How can I drive value back to that ecosystem, but also expand the brand outward in a meaningful way so that there's a lot of longevity for years to come, right? Like, I think that IP is really powerful. I think that when you look at the world, you look at the IP brands of the world, like Mickey Mouse or Mario or, Louis Vuitton, right? Like, this is really ultimately what kind of drives like entertainment and commerce, in my opinion, is IP. So to be able to build that in this space with community alongside these other kind of really amazing blue chip projects that we draw inspiration from, I think is fantastic. And that's kind of like the long-term sort of ethos of Good Vibes Club is to build for the long term. And so, yeah, it's so timely, right? In a moment in time in which all we're experiencing is mass bullshit and mass extraction, we're just trying to build authentically with our community, with what we're doing to build IP, and with what we aim to do in the long term. And so I think that it's really important for, projects like us and also other projects to really speak up right now, because the community, obviously, with what's going on with Libra and mass extraction is really damaging. And so we're just stoked to be able to be here to talk to you guys and ultimately to kind of fight the good fight, so to speak, with what's happening. And yeah, Ty, I think that you could also add on to that.
Yeah,
that's kind of my perspective.
Yeah, and I think that guys, like the only thing that I'll add is like, how does that look? We talk about building IP, right? It's, in the Web2 side, we've been hired by some of the best brands in the world to create short form animated content that people connect with on some level. Like, how do you give a hefty cup personality, or how do you make an Oreo feel enticing? And so creating content that evokes an emotional reaction.
Hold on. I have to jump in. I apologize for the rude interruption, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't tie this whole conversation together today with Oreos. I didn't know if you were aware of this, but this Hayden $100 million grifter, apparently he got his start. I'm not making this up. I'll go find the screenshot. He got his start, and he got in the position he is today to grift $100 million out of the Solana ecosystem by, stop me if you've heard this, Steve. During COVID, he was selling Supreme branded Oreos. That's where he got his start.
No way.
No way. Dude, our last commercial project before entering, before fully sort of like launching and migrating was an Oreo Cakester and Oreo Thins project. So
you guys are probably doing it legitly though. I'm assuming.
Yeah. We're making ads like Oreos, like TV, and
this guy was just ripping off the Supreme and the Oreo branding and selling knockoff Supreme branded Oreos during COVID, and that led him to ultimately grifting a couple $100 million from the Solana ecosystem. So you never know where you get your start, but Hayden got his with fake Supreme Oreos. Sorry, go ahead. That was rude, but I had to share that.
So wild.
That's what today, brought to you by no, I'm kidding.
Dude, actually, when we were watching the national championship tie, I think, right? Is that what you're about to say? Go for it. Go for it. Yeah, go for it.
When we were watching the Bucks bring home that dub in the national championship, we saw an Oreo ad that we made play, during the Natty. So, which was pretty cool. We actually saw another ad that we made as well. But Oreo was the one we're like, oh my God, that was the first one we saw.
What's your favorite ad? Or is there an ad that you've ever created that really stood out? Like that was the most fun, or that was the best work we've ever did? Is there one that stands out amongst the rest?
We probably have different answers, but what would you say, Ty?
I think that I'll give my answer, and I know yours is going to be different from an art perspective, but
yeah,
I think when you rebrand Facebook Messenger, like our art has been seen by billions of people globally. And you guys have probably seen it and not even known it. When Instagram launched their integration with Facebook Messenger, where you can cross-platform message, that was the time in which they rolled out the rebrand for Facebook Messenger, where we built all of the assets that you see in-app and the actual like announcement modal that everybody on Instagram and everybody on Facebook Messenger saw. And so I think for me, it's like, how can you build something that reaches like so many people globally? And like, how can you create art that, so many people can see? It's just like the coolest thing ever. And like, for us, we're an animation studio, right? We like to keep our we have a roster of artists, and obviously we scale up on depending on the needs of whatever production. But you sometimes feel like you're this like crew of folks that are like making stuff, but then you see it like reach all these people, and it's just the most like, I don't know, humbling feeling. And so for me, that was like a really pivotal moment. And since then we've had amazing projects too. But for me, that was like the pivotal one. But Chris, I know your answer is probably different.
Yeah, we've worked on a lot of really fun stuff, but one of the ones that I really enjoyed a couple of years ago was the Google Cloud stuff, because I really love when, like I've always been obsessed with like stylized 3D that's pretty vibrant and colorful and playful and a little cute, maybe even a little bit kind of like miniature world-esque. And so when we did this sort of branding package for the Google Cloud conference like a year or two ago, we got to kind of build out this like 3D world city of the Google Cloud, sort of in the shape of the cloud logo. And then it was also a VR experience where people would take sort of our like Google Cloud city and then experience that at the conference in VR, which I thought was pretty cool. So I really liked it from an art perspective because it kind of, again, is similar to sort of the vibe of what I personally love. It was a really fun project. It also was like a minute long sort of like conference opener. And so it was a good time.
I dropped the links in our chat if you want to pull them up too, so people can see.
Oh, awesome.
Oh yeah, I'm on it, Cap. I'll let you keep going. This is awesome.
Dude, but it's like, I mean, while you're pulling that up, it's like for us, we already have a studio, we already have artists, and with Good Vibes Club, like our vision is to build out the studio and the production arm even more. It's really, how do we bring on artists that plug into our pipeline, in 3D, whether it's 2D or whatever? How do we build out the production arm to really create content that people can connect with at scale? Because that's, if you're talking about building a recognizable IP, scale is something that you have to optimize for. And so that's something we're talking about a lot.
Gets me really excited. I know we've given, and not to compare to another brand. It is relevant. We've given Doodles a lot of credit for their acquisition of Golden Wolf and what that's done for them and the future that gives them as a brand. Here, it's like it'd be the equivalent of like Golden Wolf launching the NFT, the Web3 crypto native brand. Like you have the team, you have the credentials and the results and the experience, and you don't have to go out and pay presumably millions of dollars to go acquire a brand. You are that brand. So it gets me excited to see what it's done for Doodles, and to be launching from this with this talent in-house is pretty exciting.
Dude, and I love that you brought that up, because the motion design community is really small. A lot of the artists, even the artists that have moved over into Web3 like DK and whatnot, they're our close friends because Chris used to work with them at all the same shops. Like there's this small group of motion design studios that are very close. I'm in a private Slack group for the last like 6 years of maybe a dozen different motion design studios, Golden Wolf being one of them. Dottie, who's the managing director at Golden Wolf, who now runs content at Doodles. When Chris and I started our animation studio, she was great to us, like gave me so much valuable insight and feedback in terms of starting our studio in the commercial space. And so, we got on a call with Ingy, or I got on a call with Ingy last week, and we were talking about like scaling the production pipeline around IP. What does that look like? And just his general learnings, because like one-to-one experience of working in motion design and then, building in Web3, like having that high quality art production pipeline, it's different. And, I think Ingy, more so than a lot of people, understand how that translates and where it's different in Web 2 versus Web 3. And so it's been awesome to be able to tap into, those folks and gain some valuable insight, because, I know Chris, you used to work with Dottie like a lot back in the day, like a decade ago. And, the love for the dudes runs deep. And, I've been so impressed with what they've done.
Yeah. Dottie and I actually, before Dottie went to Golden Wolf, and when I first moved to New York in like 2013, we both kind of had our sort of, early days in the industry at a small studio in the city. And we were working in like a team of like 5 people, and it was just me, Dottie, and then like some other artists and stuff. So we go really, really way back, well pre NFTs and a lot and so on. And so it's cool to see what Dottie's done. She's been awesome. She's an incredible person, and she's been really helpful in sort of giving her perspective and sharing her learnings from Golden Wolf to Doodles to really everything. So couldn't say enough positive things about Dottie. She's awesome.
And I'm going to make a Doodles comparison when I come back. It's funny you brought up Doodles, Cap, as we did it. But just to make sure I have my order of operations here. So Chris said Google Cloud, right? And Ty said so one is a 30-second, one is a 60-second. I believe my sound should pump through no problem. So Cap, we're going to watch both, and then we're going to rule whether we side with Chris or Ty.
Vote in the chat. Vote in whatever chat you're in.
Let's go.
Yeah,
brotherly competition. I love it.
Yeah, I'm like Cap and I are like so like overly competitive about the dumbest shit. So like we'll just we turn everything into a competition.
So I don't want to tilt the favor of my scale too easily, but just so you guys know, this animation here at the top is like the main wide, and if you scroll down, you'll see all the rooms that we built out that they then built out in VR and the Google Cloud. So whereas Facebook Messenger, you can just watch the video.
All right, we'll check this out to start, and we'll know that the caveat is there. Noted. All right, we're gonna play this and see how it goes. All right, let's see if the sound works properly.
Is this just this is just the one sort of static still. Well, if you guys actually scroll down a little bit, it might be worth just kind of watching this real quick.
Okay.
This is like the conference opener. It's a minute-long piece. It starts in 2D and then branches in 3D and kind of shows a little bit of vibes in terms of, what was going on.
This is like, what this is like sometimes like my son will be like competing with my daughter in something, and he'll be like trying to tee it up and give all of the like, he's like, just so you know, I like it. Let's rock it.
What we build builds the future. Even in times of uncertainty, the world hurtles forward. Now is no time to stand still. Now is our moment to fuel the innovation that changes, well, everything. After all, we're in the business of imagination, of transformation. We help business leaders Industry pioneers and entrepreneurs anticipate tomorrow's problems and engineer world-changing solutions today. Today, we embark on an adventure into uncharted territory where we'll dare to explore, unite on new ground, and build for the future. In fact, we'll build beyond. Are you ready? This is Accelerate 2023.
Yeah, that was pretty fire. This is pretty fire. That's gonna be.
And
tough
so this frame right here, when it pulls back, that was the background for the I think the COO of Google, maybe Ty. It was like the main guy, the main speaker.
So this why like the virtual event opened up on the city, and then if you click on any of the 4 color quadrants, it would take you into a room that we built out in 3D. So the stills are down on the page if you scroll down. But it was
the room stills are pretty sweet.
What Chris really liked about it was like, and these were like you could walk through these rooms in VR. And so what Chris really loved about this was building out the worlds, in which like each different room was, designed around some specific element of Google Cloud and whatnot. And then the teaser video was really just for the conference, but.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with the details. This is actually very cool. Oh, and the sketches. I am a hard sucker for original sketches. This is like my favorite sort of stuff, seeing how the sort of hot dog is made.
Yeah.
Getting to see the sketch and this is cool. I mean, this is very cool that you've kind of shown the whole piece on that. So, yeah, it's going to be a hard one to top. We're going to see though, because we got the messenger piece on here. So
this one's pretty cool too. It is.
All right. I'll play the 1 minute messenger video, then I'll scroll down to the page, and then Cap, we will make a decision. It's gonna be hard to convince me off that Google one. That Google one was tight.
Thanks, dude. Let's go.
That was dope too. That was fun. That was like the other one, it's hard because it's a big opening conference with all these details, but the way that you work your animation style into the videos, obviously there's good reason for that. And I want to actually build on that and ask you a follow-up question, because we mentioned the Doodles team. You mentioned the Doodles team. By the way, my vote's for Google, but I really like that Facebook Messenger one. Cap, where do you stand?
I'm probably going to go Google as well. But my bigger takeaway is, Payne, if you're listening in, we're going to have you. We appreciate your efforts on getting our intro, outro videos, but you're going to have to level up a little bit after seeing those.
Yeah. Our intro video and outro video is like a Google slideshow. And we were like, damn, that's awesome. Now we saw this and we're like, Payne, here we go. Let's go. But no, I actually I look at this, and one of the things that I find fascinating about your art style and your sort of origin story is I was actually probably one of the first 100, maybe even the first 20 people in the Doodles Discord, where Evan had reached out and said like, hey, I'm doing this thing. And they had these really impressive backgrounds, but they said, we want to do this thing that we own, that is our own. So I hear that origin story, and that seems like a through line. And the other comparison I would make is that what makes Doodles so interesting is that, and you can't sell this, is that their IP is uniquely Doodles, right? Like when I use this example of branding where they do an NFT NYC poster that says Doodles nowhere on it, but it's Doodles. And I think very similarly, do y'all feel those sort of same relationships with the origin story as well as your animation style is something that if you did a poster for NFT Paris, everyone would have been like, oh, that's Good Vibes Club.
Exactly. And that's something that, as an artist, that's been my vision from day one. In terms of when I think of the great artists in the space that I really look up to and just love and really enjoy, I think of like DK. If you look at his work, you don't need to see by DK anywhere. because you can see that artistic voice via the creative decisions that were made. And so that's always been my goal as an artist, that if people look at my work, they know, okay, you know, this is made by Chris or this is made by Toast, right? Like that's super important. And I think you see that with Burnt Toast work. I've been following him on Instagram, dude, since like, I don't know, 2012 or whenever it was, like a long time. And I think he's one of those guys. I think Beeple is one of those guys. I think, you know, there's a lot of people, you know, that might be bigger in Web 2, even like Peter Tarka. If you look at his work, he's kind of like similar like that. He's a 3D guy. And there's my friend Gavin. If you see his like, kind of like penguins and, you know, flamingos that are in that kind of trance sort of zooming in, Fibonacci, exactly, you know, oscillating thing, like, you know, you immediately know it's his work. And so that is something, the artistic voice of an artist and of a project, and most importantly of an IP, is something that I've been really passionate about for my entire career, like 15 years.
It's also how we build our studio too, dude. Like, you know, if you think about how productions are made, like a marketing manager or creative director at an agency or at an in-house, you know, creative team, they put together like a brief by going to Behance and Dribble and all sorts of places on Instagram or whatever of creative references. And so, you know, if there's a brief for stylized 3D, that's all, like majority, like a lot of our inbound interest is because of that. And so when you develop your artistic voice and you create a lot of different types of content that feels like it has a through line, there's where you can thrive as, you know, building. That's how we built our animation studio. And I think the same is true if you're building an IP and specifically what you mentioned about Doodles. And I think they do an amazing job of that. And so, you know, for us, having that artistic voice in 3D is really, you know, the foundation of everything.
If you had to pin down sort of what your brand is going to be ultimately, the style animation. So Doodles was sort of a little bit, at least I don't know if they've pivoted from this as they've changed a little bit, but they were sort of at this adventure time where they're like, look, we're not a kids sort of, you know, show. And I think that actually is one of the reasons for the pivot they've made, is that I felt like maybe they felt they didn't say this, but it felt like they were leaning in that direction really hard towards the kids thing. And they're like, look, we're more than that. And we want to have this sort of different sort of view. They have the dark mode thing. And I think like one of the important things is defining a brand and who you are. And so I guess like if you're thinking about your animation style, like it feels very sort of whimsical, fresh, fun. There's sort of these certain feelings to it that you get. If you were like trying to extrapolate that into what you're going to be putting on, you know, Instagram and other places and ultimately into animated shorts, what would you say your stylistic sort of vibe and feeling is going to be?
That's a great question. I love this. I think that, you know, when asking this question, it also begs like, who is sort of the target audience? Like, who are you appealing to? I think with what we've seen in our target audience, we honestly appeal to a little bit older crowd, like sort of 30s and 40s kind of crowd. But also one of the litmus tests of all of the work that I create is my 2-year-old son. If he runs in here and he looks at an animation that's playing on my monitor and it captivates him for more than, I don't know, 10 seconds, and he's like, Dad, more, then that's good, because that's able to kind of speak to, you know, the attention sort of grabbing nature of highly expressive and highly colorful, highly vibrant work. So to kind of answer like, what is our style? I think that ultimately it's sort of an extension of who we are and what we love. We're really into like expressive, playful vibes that also, you know, tell stories that people can kind of really connect with and see themselves within. So I would say in many senses, we do appeal to a little bit of that sort of older crowd of like, kind of, this is really fun and playful. And I can see why this is so, you know, engaging, but also, you know, the younger audience as well.
Yeah. And this is something I spoke with Ingy about at length too, is really relatability. If you think about creating content that fuels your IP and creates brand awareness, the foundation of that is relatability. And so it's like, evoking emotion is done through expressiveness, it's done through motion. And so, you know, there needs to be this element that somebody can watch something and relate to it, even if the art direction is really colorful and playful. That's sort of like Chris's artistic voice and our studio's artistic voice, is that like really vibrant, expressive, colorful, sort of stylized 3D. But the hook is expressive, like connection to, you know, whatever the art is via motion. And so that's really the vehicle for, you know, building the IP. And I think Claynosaurus does an amazing job of this. You look at a lot of their content, you know, shout out to Zane. He's on our team. He runs our content strategy. And, you know, he worked at Claynosaurus for a while, and he helped grow their entire Web 2 presence and really ideating around content. and how do you create this like emotional reaction that you evoke through your animation. That's something that he really helped do with them. And they do an amazing job of it. They're pros. So hats off to them.
Yeah, I think one of the things that, and again, this, for what it's worth, just, observing, well, there's two thoughts. There's one, I think it was like Gladwell had written this book about how like the reason Sesame Street won compared to other sort of properties is that they've made content that was kid friendly, but they would work the adult jokes in there. And obviously you're not Sesame Street, right? You're not going that far into the kids direction, but like the idea that, when I watch a movie with my kids now, invariably, I can't watch any movie from any major studio, DreamWorks, Pixar, you name it, that isn't fit for them, but also works for me. And I think that idea of that combination and that playfulness makes a lot of sense where, there's this thing where I think growing up, the baby boomers would be like, well, I'm a baby boomer. I don't play video games and watch cartoons. And I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to be 42 in June and I like to watch cartoons and play video games and I don't care. And so
exactly,
I think you can play around with that with this sort of IP, right? Where it's like you can do something where you can make something I enjoy, but it doesn't preclude me from watching it with my 10-year-old. And I think there's probably a lane there. And is that, am I grasping that somewhat right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm similar. Like I'm 35 and I love video games. I've been a gamer my whole life, right? And I think that you see that now with media. It's not really as regimented as it was prior because honestly, this is maybe a little bit of a weird take, but I think that the way that technology advanced is what drove that. Like if you go back, like our great grandparents didn't even have like radios. And then our grandparents, the radio kind of came, I think roughly, the radio sort of came about. And then like the color TV kind of came about, in our parents' sort of generation with boomers. And then so a lot of our parents really gravitate towards that lane of media. Now, everyone has access to all media. It's all sort of omni sort of potent and present. And it allows people to choose what they really love and what they connect with. So video games aren't just for kids. It's really for anyone. Or, movies aren't just for adults. It's really for anyone. So I think that seeing that in media really is important for how brands engage with their audiences. And so being able to engage with audiences across sort of multiple collaterals, I think is really important. And I also think that, that sort of through line of like, how can I captivate like the attention of a child, but also speak with maybe the narrative story content, or maybe like a funny sort of relatable meme that someone like us would really enjoy and appreciate. And so that's really important, right? To hit those two notes and to hit them hard and hit them well, I think is really critical. So yeah, that's kind of like our sort of ethos and our vision.
Okay, so I'm gonna just completely get out in front of this, and then Cap, I'll toss to you for anything else you want to ask before we get him out of here, which is so let's say Mint, everything goes well, everything's on mainnet, we're excited about it. You may have noticed with my background, I'm a little bit of a merch guy. So I think that this IP is right for all sorts of really cool, creative, different types of apparel, as well as just general sort of collectibles, figurines, etc. I love the digital, but I like the physical. What are some things that you would think about if you were to throw out like the awesome items that people could collect, whether they're creative or just very basic? Like, what are the things that you've thought about related to that? Because I think it just lends itself to collectors in that way.
Ty, you want to take this?
Dude, for sure. So we're working on merch right now. Obviously, like, the hoodies they're dope. A jacket would be sick, some beanies, some hats. There's a lot of actually like clothing items that are in the collection that we want to, build merch around, but also some other things. And so we're discussing physicals as well. But
like high-end art, sort of vinyl toys. I love that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, back in the day, I was really into the nerdy Warhammer vibes. Like I had like a little Warhammer thing going on. So I really appreciate the little sort of figurines and like, them painted well and sort of executed well. So that's really cool. Like I love that kind of stuff. I just feel like one of the reasons that we spent so much time building so much detail in the collection itself was so that there can be different sub-communities. There could be different sort of people that are attracted to sort of different traits or different details, and also different opportunities for merch and activation, right? Like when you have like a world or a universe that has a lot of like visual hierarchy and depth, I think that lends itself really well to additional activations. So I'm really excited to kind of see like where things go with that. We have all these other sort of ideas that I won't necessarily reveal at this point, but that we're really excited about too, specifically around that. But yeah, it's something that I really love too. And I think that it's going to be really exciting to see in the real world.
Well, if you ever need unsolicited or solicited feedback, I am I'm a lockbox. I won't like leak the alpha, not an alpha leaking guy, but I have so many thoughts running through my heads of the different things that y'all could do, which would be very cool. So I have to ask about the merch and the apparel because, like I said, I am you mentioned the vinyls. I love the vinyls. I think Doodles has crushed those. I got a Bored Ape Yacht Club Super Plastic that was really cool. So I think a lot of different types of creative physicals are really, really fun. So looking forward to that. No need to take me up on that, but I'm as a target customer who buys fucking everything, I would, be, I'm excited to see what you all come out with. So really, really pumped that you're thinking about it that way.
Dude, another thing to add to that is like the whole collection is composed of 12 different color groupings. And this is to ensure that there's harmony and cohesion amongst how vibrant colors interact with each other. But there's also like more rare subgroupings of like, sub collections, if you would, within the wider collection, which from a community standpoint, it's super fun. Think of your like old Halo sort of red versus blue, but except for within your collection, you have your different sub collections and whatnot. And so, activating merch around that, like to give those sub communities like something really cool is something we're thinking about too. So there's a lot of fun stuff in the works. But I love that you brought it up.
The machinima days. I love that you brought up a little red versus blue action. That was was very much my childhood. I love that. Cap, I'll let you get in here. Sorry, I keep jumping in. I keep seeing you go for the mute politely with like your scrounge board, and I'm like, I got more questions. Go ahead, Cap.
All good. I don't like. I'm gonna feel free to pun it or no comment because I don't want you to. I'm not trying to put you on the spot, and I don't want you to share anything you're not. I'm just curious about user-generated content for individuals like myself, who's not nearly as talented as either you or Zane. That the art's really cool, the 3D element's really cool. How might myself or someone in the community who doesn't have the ability to bring these things to life, is there anything you could speak to on UGC?
Dude, definitely. We've already started thinking about this and sort of prepping some things. So at first, we're not planning on releasing the OBJs, which are the 3D objects in the files or whatnot. I think what we have gotten a lot of interest in that, so we might shortlist like and make have like a subgrouping of things that we can provide to the community if they are familiar with working in 3D. That's something we're talking about. But another thing that we're actively working on in regards to UGC is like creating blank canvases. So like imagine that, I don't know if you've seen any of the streams that we've done where we've actually built, a Vibe from scratch with our community where they vote on the traits and whatnot. But like imagine we have like the base body in 5 or 6 different colors and we release them to the community, and then they can either draw on it over top of it in 2D or sort of comp things in Photoshop with 3D and sort of like create their own versions of them. There's a lot of fun stuff that we can do there. And so a big part of our community is like just building with them, right? That's how we think about a lot of the narrative content that we can do together post mint. But it's also providing our community with the tools to like, go wild and have fun with UGC. And so I think it's awesome if we're a group of artists in a studio that loves making art and our community kind of rallies around that to an extent, or some people do within it, then it's dope as founders to kind of give people the tools in order to have fun with that.
Yeah, and I need to add on, I'm not sure if we've, discussed the bust thing at length, but I think it's a really cool idea that is a little bit unique, at least from what I've seen. And so in the collection, there's going to be 3 pieces that are essentially, imagine like a GVC, imagine a Vibe that's like made out of like a stone sculpture, like a Michelangelo piece, like David or something that's not yet completed. So imagine like a half finished stone sculpture. If someone pulls, there'll be 3 of them. If someone pulls one of those on Mint, they will get the opportunity to hop on a live stream with me, and we can build out like their honorary GVC custom together, relationally, sort of in real time. And so to be able to do that and then have that live, that honorary will then live with the honoraries collection. It'll be minted with all of the other, honoraries that you've seen, like Seed Phrase and, G Money and all these other really cool honoraries that we've been releasing. So their honoraries will be minted and live there. So I think being able to have like community activations like that are really important, really fun. And, we're just trying to be creative in how we build relationships and how we engage ultimately. So I'm really excited about that.
Awesome. Well, look, anything else that we missed today that you want to make sure that we cover and get to our audience? I know we covered the big news. we got deep in the bag here. We got some ads from the past that y'all were able to share. We talked a little bit about merch and other things, which is a personal passion. Anything else we missed that y'all want to share as we continue before we let y'all get out of here?
Dude, for sure. I guess there's probably some people tuning in that might not know the full details around the collection. So I'll just kind of give a high level rundown there. Our collection supply is 6969. We're planning on minting in Q1. So that's going to be coming up here quite soon. We haven't quite announced the date specifically, but we will be announcing it soon. We've been running early access pre-sales for some early community members. We had a private Discord since early 22. And we let those plus another group within our community, mint in early access. So far, that's been going really great. We actually over minted what our projection was for this phase of it. And so, we're really excited about how excited our community is around what we're building. And so if you want to get involved, join the Discord, follow us on X. We're going to be announcing exciting mint info coming soon, but dudes, thank you so much for having us on. This has been a blast. Ohio boys got to stick together, and we really appreciate you having us on.
Hell yes. Anytime. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for your leadership and what y'all are doing. It has been a week where the timeline has been an absolute cesspool. This is a bright spot. Appreciate y'all for coming through today.
Dude, and that's it. Right now, we've been in this space a long time. We've seen scams and, all sorts of extraction from the ICO days, to rug pulls in NFT projects, to meme coins and all sorts of crime. Right now, I think more than ever, this space just needs, real legitimate builders and good vibes. And so, our whole vision around our community is to create a movement of authentic connection and letting people connect as humans. And so, for us, how we frame Good Vibes Club and what it is that we're building, it's allowing people to have that space to be themselves and to be safe and whatnot. And so, I think just now more than ever with how much just pull me down sort of, negativity on the timeline, that's kind of how we think about what it is that we're building.
I just want to say respect for making decisions. And I it may seem easy in hindsight, but I have to imagine it was a pretty tough decision to announce you're going on Abstract, to have a tough conversation. And so I just want to give respect for making a quick move, listening to your community, what I believe doing the right thing. Sometimes tough decisions are, the right decisions are hard. And to make a move like this, I don't imagine it was easy. I can't imagine Chris was looking forward to having that conversation with Luca.
No.
I also want to give some flowers to Luca, and I just saw Finn put out a post. They could have handled this very differently, and I don't want that to get lost in this conversation. Abstract could have said, "Screw you guys. This is we've been promoting you, and you're gonna take our free promotion and then leave." I think. Steve, we talk about, we're very fortunate that we get to talk with founders that are pushing this space forward. We talk about how the space has matured and grown up a lot in the last few years, despite this, recent crime ring expose. I think it does say a lot to leaders involved, to partners, to businesses, that they can work together, they can support each other, even if sometimes that means building on other chains or not working directly together right now. This is such a small space. It's so incestuous. It's almost impossible to think of a future. If you're going to be here building for the next decade plus, you're likely going to cross paths with quite literally every single other builder in this space over the course of those next 10 years. I think doing so in a manner where we're professional, we're supporting each other, we're working together, I think that benefits all of us far greater than the alternative of bashing and tearing those down that might not mean we might not be working directly with today. So salute, appreciate you, respect to the Good Vibes teams as well as the Abstract team, because again, they could have not even said screw you guys, but they also didn't have to speak on it publicly like they've done, right? I'm very impressed with how at least publicly it seems both parties have handled this, and
privately, dude. I echo your sentiment completely, and thank you for that. I do want to go on record and say the Abstract team is amazing. They're true pros. I think Luca is the most prolific builder in Web3 right now. He's just such a genuine human, and what we appreciate in business and not is genuine authenticity. And I think that Finn, Mason, the entire Abstract team that we've gotten the pleasure of building relationships with, they exhibit that. And so for us, it's not like, oh, we're done with abstract forever. It's that how it looks in interacting on abstract just looks different now than it will in the future. And so, we're actively figuring out how that looks. And like I said, I think that they're an incredible activation layer around engaging with your community. And so we fully intend, to integrate there. And so those conversations are taking place between the abstract team and and us.
Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Seriously appreciate it.
Right on. Thanks for
Ty, I don't know if it's got word back to you yet, but I attempted to get a surf lesson in with Chris, and he said you're the pro. So when I make it down to Puerto Rico, looking
100%.
I got you, dude. Let's go. I actually took this photo. I don't know if you can even see it. It's a surf photo back when I lived in California. Here in Puerto Rico, I shaped some of my own boards too.
Wow.
So when you guys make a trip down, we'll get wet. We'll get some waves. I'll make sure.
Just gonna throw it out there. We've seen skate decks be a popular piece of like custom merch in Web3. I don't know if we've seen a custom skateboard yet or a surfboard yet. So just throwing that out there.
Dude, I was actually thinking about shaping one for our first like IRL event. But the problem is I never leave my house anymore because I work so much and I have 2 kids under 2. So I need to get on that, but I got a blank for it. So I just got to cut some foam. Maybe
Nice.
we'll raffle it off at the event.
So I was gonna say like a cool 1-of-1 prize
Yeah.
for somebody, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be like a full-on item, but a cool 1-of-1 prize for somebody. So no, that's awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. I got all the good vibes. And yeah, these sort of conversations give me energy. Like this has been an hour that has flown by, right? I just really enjoy talking all sorts of shop with y'all. Y'all have the best energy and I appreciate it.
Dude, likewise, man. We love y'all. And we can't thank you enough for having us on. And I can't even tell you how sad I was that I missed the IRL hang session in Paris. That was some serious FOMO for me.
You'll be at the next one. You'll be at the next one for sure.
Oh, no.
Dude, thank you guys. This has been amazing.
Right on. Appreciate it.